And joining us live in studio is Major General Tibelo Mosikiri, National Head of Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Offences Investigation in the South African Police Service, and Walter Lukhuleni is a Secretary for Publicity for the Pan-African Congress. Miyoko Matuba is ANC Women's League Secretary General, and we also have the Director General in the Department of Women, Janie Schreiner. You at home are most welcome to give us a call, 011-542-2186, and you can tweet at ANN7TV. Good evening to you. It's really been just such a surreal experience, I think, in the past couple of days, that you are shocked beyond your wits and senses as to what's going on, with a number of desperate pleas and posts sent almost on a daily basis of missing women, only to be found charred, maimed, mutilated, assaulted. How do we even make sense of it?
It is scary, Cindy. It is really scary, and it's unfortunate that we, as a country who is leading to 2030, where we have a very good vision that we want to see everybody in South Africa and those who will find themselves living in it safe and feeling safe, and we're experiencing this. At the time that we should be working towards celebrating that at least we get in there, we are experiencing what we are experiencing currently. It is really scary. And
I mean, we're grappling with understanding where it all emanates from. Is it from the bitter past? Is it that perhaps perpetrators themselves were reared in a violent and toxic environment? Or is it misguided masculinity, Walter? Hashtag men are trash. I mean, you know, this is a society, obviously, that is at loggerheads as to what to do with this particular phenomenon.
Thanks, Cindy. I think as a political party, we don't want to get involved in the psychoanalysis of where this comes from. But as a political party, as a PAC, we believe that the problem could be nipped in the bud if the state was to act in a manner that protects women. We have a very fantastic constitution in this country. But unfortunately, the constitution also gives rights to rapists and murderers. And as the party, we think that we need to revisit that right to life. Because I don't believe, as the PAC, we don't believe it is correct for victims of murder and rape, whether it's their families or survivors, to be paying tax to keep rapists and murderers in jail.
Mr. Lukhuleni, are you referring to the death penalty?
Yes. You see, as a PAC, we believe that there's a misguided understanding of the issue of right to life. When the death penalty was cancelled, it was cancelled because the powers that be, the National Party government, the apartheid regime, was using the death penalty not for the purposes that it was supposed to serve, but to attack political opponents. So it is not correct to think that removing the death penalty then solves the problem, because political opponents are being killed day by day as we speak.
The problem with that, which I obviously, the debate and it can go on, is that there's never actually been evidence of the fact that the death penalty does substantially affect the crime statistics, particularly if you look at countries like the United States, where some states are still practicing that particular law. But to be more direct, as men, as male figures, we have a challenge in the country, and I think, my sister, you will agree with that. But we also have a serious problem with the fact that when we have a crisis, when we have a situation like this, then you start hearing voices. But then soon after that, it's gone past, and there's dead silence on the matter again. What is it that we are supposed to do to make sure that the conversation doesn't end with Karabo, but it continues to be something that is at the pulse of our politicians, of our leaders, society, and make sure that these perpetrators are actually convicted?
Thank you, Clive. I think if we can recall and we go back to the marked calendar days throughout the year, we do not stop giving guidance, giving awareness, even having marches that will go to court to make sure that those who perpetrated this kind of crimes do get harsher sentences. It's a pity that this happened to Karabo, and I think what is happening currently is that we should use this opportunity to make sure that we raise more voices, we make more noises, because despite the fact that we've been talking about these issues, despite the fact that we've been giving advices and awareness, and the more you give advice, it's the more that women find themselves to be on or being killed or perishing in the hands of those that they trust, number one, and those that they believe within, if they are or find themselves within their company, they will be safe. And more so, the small children like the ones that we are seeing. I mean, Karabo is still very young. Not only Karabo and the other girls that you see have perished in the hands of men that they trusted.
Where lies the problem? Is it the South African police service? Is it the fact that in our homes we don't teach the boy child how to behave and how to treat women? Or is the problem a far much deeper scar of maybe our recent history that is affecting the way that men portray women? And how do we then start to approach a solution?
Maybe if I can come in there, I don't think we can blame history there. The women of this country were part of the oppressed group.
Yeah.
So they experienced the same oppression as the men. So in actual fact, they experienced more because they lost children. Their children were killed by the apartheid regime. Some of them have not been found, buried in shallow graves. So you can't blame that to that. I think the problem is that there was no poll to ask the South African people whether they would want the death penalty to go away. Yes, for political reasons, it was taken. But the reality is that we don't have a deterrent. If you look at Botswana, look at the statistics in Botswana, the numbers are very low when it comes to murder of children and women.
All right, but please hold that thought, Walter. We've got a caller. Pete, good evening to you, and thanks for joining the show.
Yes, good evening.
What's your comment or question?
My question is, first of all, not a question, my comment is that, first of all, I think the death penalty should be brought back for cases like this. Secondly, I have no doubt that this is a terrible thing that has happened, but if you look at what Judge Mabel Jansen has said, there is an inherent issue here. And thirdly, we make such an issue about that, but we make no issue about farm murders. So, we are living in such a violent society, and I would like the panel to just say that that doesn't have only to do with this fantastic, beautiful girl, Karabo. It has to do with the violence in this country, and we need to step up and reduce that.
All right, Pete, thanks so much for your call. Let's invite the Deputy General in the Department of Women, and this is Yanni Schreiner. Thank you, DG, for joining us. Just in terms of a strategy going forward, I don't even know if the death penalty, according to our Constitution, is something that could be reviewed or something that could be debated. Or whether we've just simply put that off the table altogether. But the strategy going forward cannot be that we have ministers saying, women need to leave abusive relationships, and we blame the security forces, to be more vigilant. What more can be done? What is the Department of Women more specifically doing to safeguard women? DG? All right, we'll try and patch that. Let's see if we have Meokgo Maduba, ANC Youth League, or Women's League Secretary General. Ma'am Maduba, thanks so much for joining us. Good evening to you. I mean, you just have to go on social media. And as I'm sitting here, there are various messages that are popping up. For another missing girl, there's one in Klerksdorp who was missing 2 days prior to her body being found. She's 15. Until the family put the picture on social media, the case probably would not have been reported. So, Memaduba, what more can be done? I mean, I think we're all at a loss for words and in terms of a strategy.
First and foremost, let me send our heartfelt condolences to the families. From last week until today, last Friday, we have observed, as the Women's League said, the trend and the pattern is one in the country. Women are being women are killed, and we feel that this is not enough for us. This is not okay for us as an organization or as a movement. And we think that this is a societal issue. It's not only women's issue. It's high time whereby our male counterparts, they come to party and support us as women. We feel that there's much that needs to be done during our policy conference. When you look at the justice system, the Oscar Pistorius case, you still feel that there is much that needs to be done. Patriarchy, economic inequalities, they are still there, they are still existing in our lifetime in 2017. Therefore, as a society, as a nation, it's not about political parties or organizations, it's about us as women in South Africa. We must stand up and say it is enough.
But haven't we done similar campaigns, though? And please stay on the line. We also have a voice, or Walter rather, Lokhuleni, Secretary for Publicity at the PAC. There's so many campaigns, Love Life, the Power, NGOs, support groups, the police. By now, we should have had a collaborative strategy that would deter anybody from violating a woman and child. And yet it seems to be even escalating.
I think, Cindy, the problem here is that we're not addressing the fundamental problem here. The fundamental problem here is that a young woman gets killed or gets raped, gets violated, and the perpetrator gets a free meal, gets a balanced diet, gets a free education, and also has a right to come back to society. There's a fallacy that says you can rehabilitate that. For me, a person that steps and violates... Look, if you look at our society, the majority of households are female-headed families, And I don't think it is the women failing to teach the boys how to treat women. It is just a culture of impunity that is there. People know that they can get away with it. All that can happen. And we're just now talking about the cases that are being reported, that are coming to the spotlight. How many of them are happening where we don't know about it? And for us as the PAC, we believe that we need to go back to the basics. The community out there, if you listen to them, as we go door to door talking to them, they will tell you, but why did you take away the death sentence?
Yeah,
and our position is very clear. We're saying that it is not correct to say that a death penalty is not a deterrent because we're looking at the US, we're looking at those cases. Because in those societies, you look at the population there, how many people compared are being killed as compared to here?
All I'm trying to find out, and maybe Major General, this would be fitting for you. What about this culture that we've seemingly, and it's a whole host of problems, there's social issues that we can actually go into, but for first and foremost, the high unemployment in the country, which leaves women vulnerable. We have a culture where even in the Northwest, the department that we're speaking to tonight had a problem where we had more than 3,000 girls between the age of 16 and 18 who were pregnant. You have a situation where we have blessers and blessees becoming a culture.
I think I want to come in there because sometimes in terms of looking at socio-economic issues, we get away from what is really important. If we say the most vulnerable in society are women and children, where are the men then standing up for that? Because we can intellectualize it all we want, but there are mothers sitting there weeping for their babies. Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is that the construct of where it could potentially be coming from. The superiority that men feel over women. Could it be the situation? Could it be that the situation that women find themselves in a vulnerable position? And I'm not speaking on behalf of men to protect them. I'm saying, could it be that culture now has cultivated into a situation where now you find males feeling that they have an upper hand, because some doctors explain it as a thing of superiority, that I have power over you because I'm economically in a better situation than you, or I'm feeding you. Could there be a potential that could have also made this a situation?
Thank you, Clive. I don't agree to a larger extent.
Yeah.
We also need to look at the issue of moral fiber.
Yeah.
We as the society, I don't even want to bring the issues of organizations or the authority that should respond and react when the things has happened. But as a society, what is it that we are saying, what we are doing? And we cannot even begin to blame it on parents, because I don't believe there's any single parent who wants to raise a murderer or a rapist. We are having a recent case now of a grade 7 boys who have just engaged in sexual activity. Are we going to say it's because they are raised by a single parent? Are we going to be saying it's because they are boys and they are feeling that they have power over somebody in terms of their economic background? I don't believe that might be the issue that is affecting the current situation. But what is it that it's happening within us?
Major General, maybe we can.
After,
sorry to interrupt. Just maybe looking at the profile, we've heard that there is a syndicate. There are vehicles that are identified in a particular make. Another case at the Florida UNISA building where a young lady was abducted. She lived, to tell the story. So we need to know who these people are. They're made to be, to be arrested as well. But we have callers, Gwandile and Ekurhuleni and Owen and Diepkloof. We see you. Hello to you, Gwandile.
Hello, how are you?
Okay, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. For me, we need to start dealing with the fundamental issue here. Before we can start talking about the death penalty, we need to address this at a very primary level. These kids themselves are suffering from abuse. These kids themselves have their own issues that they don't know how to address them. Social workers are not going to schools because these kids are spending the most time at these schools. And nothing is being done to deal with the psyche of these kids, because as a boy child, you're not being taught the role and responsibility you have on women and the other kids that you share these classes with. Because when you start talking about issues of crime, the death penalty, now already the person has a sense of idea of how things should be done. But we need to deal with issues at a primary level with these young kids, because nothing is being done.
All right, Gwandile, thanks so much. Calling us from Ekurhuleni. Owen and Diepkloof, good evening to you.
Evening, ma'am. How are you?
Very well, thanks. And you?
I'm fine, ma'am. I think mine, being an activist in CPFs for one, they've noted some of these things. But the reality of the fact is that we as men are failing society. I think we need to take responsibility for some of the things that are happening. And the reality is that also those that are fathers who don't play a role in their kids' lives, especially we boys, we have to find yourselves and navigate yourselves around in society. And no one tells you what is right and what is wrong. That as it may, there is no excuse anywhere in the world, nor anywhere in this earth, that one can be able to say that I have raved because I wanted.
All right, it's a pity, Owen, from Diepkloof, we lost him there. But I tend to agree in the sense that it is not the victim's obligation to now have to, especially the bereaved families, to try and figure out why a perpetrator had killed your child. I don't think as a society we're focusing on the right issues. But be that as it may, maybe the DG in the Department of Women, Jenny Schreiner, will give us a sense of direction here. DG, good evening to you and welcome.
Good evening, and thank you very much. And my apologies, I wasn't available earlier.
That's fine. I mean, we're sort of talking around the same issues, and it's nothing new, really. I think it's more because we see these things on social media and in the public domain. But we grew up surrounded by violence. 2 o'clock in the morning, there'd be women screaming, being chased. In those days, it was more common, stabbings and so forth. Is it because it's more in the open that we're aware of it than the fact that it was never present or that it's escalating?
I think we need to start from the basis of saying when a high-profile case becomes public, we start looking at a whole lot of other cases. We are in a situation internationally and particularly in our country where women do not report a lot of the violence that they experience. And so at times, there's violence that builds up, and what we see is the final end of it, which is the real crisis and the real tragedy. Unfortunately, we don't at this stage have statistics that really give us the full set of facts. Our crime stats are very good, but they are only dealing with the crimes in which women actually go to report, or where parents go to report crimes against children. I think for me what is most important is for us to be able to start looking at where is this happening, rather than to be trying to say it's worse or it's better. Personally, I would rather that it's all public and we know what's happening than that we've got good statistics that look like it's on a decrease, but in fact it's happening behind closed doors. If you look at assault against women, 58% of that happens in the house. 25% of that happens in the street. If you look at sexual offences, 48% of that happens in the home, 22% of that happens in the street, and 15% of that happens in the workplace.
Yeah, but DG, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I know that, we're very obsessed with statistics and whether these fluctuate or not. I think for me, as a society, even galvanizing around the bereaved families, number one, and secondly, as a community, to try and go beyond the community policing forums and other isolated programs. There needs to be a national directive as to what we do with perpetrators of violent sexual crimes.
I absolutely agree with you, and the point that I was making was precisely that if we get into trying to track whether it's better or worse than it was yesterday, or it's the wrong question. The key question is what are we doing to prevent, and what are we doing with the perpetrators? And I think for us, you asked in your earlier question when I wasn't able to link up with you, what are we doing? The very important part is that the strategy against violence against women and children is not a single department's responsibility. So whether you are in SAPS, in correctional services, justice, NPA, social development, basic education, higher education, the Department of Women, we need to be able to work together. But most importantly, we need to be looking at what do we do within our communities, within our families, to be able to ensure that we can prevent the scourge that is prevalent. And I think for us as the Department of Women, the contribution that we are making to that process is, one, being able to say we've got to look at the way in which we socialize our boys and our girls. We have to ensure that we're building, that we are enabling children to grow up to be the kind of citizens that we want. We need to ensure that we don't see violence against women as something that only women should be mobilizing around. We have launched a campaign to say men need to stand up and say, count me in. If we are able in our communities and in our families to be starting to look at prevention, we are able to support the criminal justice system in terms of what they do with the actual, once it's happened, and dealing with the perpetrators. Correctional Services has the very serious responsibility of having rehabilitation programs for sex offenders, for people who have perpetrated crimes, and predominantly men who have perpetrated crimes against women and against children. And we have to see that continuity. But for me, you are absolutely correct, and I think that I would reinforce what all of your panel members have been saying, that we really need the nation to stand up. And I think that the call that has been re-emphasized from the President, that we need to unite. And this, we unite 365 days, not on particular days. We unite for all of the women who are unknown, all of the children who are unknown, but who experience exactly what has been in the media.
DG, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks indeed for your time. Okay. That's Deputy Director for the Department of Women, Jenny Schreiner, speaking to us, and in studio, Major General Tebelo Matsikidi, National Head of Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Offences Investigation in the Police Service. Walter Lukuleni is the Secretary for Publicity in the PAC, and Mieho Matuba, ANC Women's League Secretary General. You at home, thanks for calling in.
Yeah, absolutely. A very, very touching story, and perhaps maybe like the DG is talking about, maybe it must be something that we talk about on 365, and also must include, most important part perhaps is getting us as males to get involved and to make sure that we speak the word against women abuse and child abuse as well. We're going to take a short break.